All right, she is just in the process of joining us, and we will have her in here momentarily. Okay, and we are ready to go. So let me push the big red button, and away we'll go. Welcome to the Secret Life of Entrepreneurs. You're listening to your host, Barb McGrath, local business owner, marketing guru, and founder of the Get Found on Google program. As always, I'm talking to a local business owner who's making a positive impact. Stay tuned to learn her secrets, what makes her tick, and what helps her keep going, what helped her become successful, and her role as a leader in our business community. Before I introduce our guest today, I want to encourage everyone to stay tuned till the end of the episode. My guest is going to make a very special offer, but you must be an audience member, so stay tuned. All right, are we ready to get started? Let's go. My guest today is Tiffany Wolf from Helium Communications, and she's going to talk about the difference great communication makes in an organization, and it's the difference between being successful or not. So welcome, Tiffany.
Thanks for having me, Barb.
Let's start off. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your business.
All right. Well, born and raised in Regina, straight up through university, got a Bachelor of Arts in journalism, which by the time I got it, I knew I didn't want. So the most obvious track after that is to go into communications. So I worked for about 6 years with the government, and then I moved into nonprofit and advocacy work. And then early last year started my own business. Figured I would offer these fantastic brains to more than one organization at a time.
Awesome. Okay, so the first question then for me is, Tiffany, it takes a lot of lady balls to be able to quit that government job and move on. So tell me about that. Tell me that experience.
It is and has always been equal parts exhilarating and terrifying. That's what I said before I did it.
Terrifying keeps you going to make sure there's a paycheck. Exhilarating is like, I cannot wait to get out of bed.
Yeah, it's what makes it worth it, right? You know, entrepreneurship is certainly roller coasters, and I think the ups make up for the downs, but I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, it was terrifying, but I just knew I needed to do it, and it was the right time in my life. So yeah, figured nothing risked, nothing gained. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. If you don't take the risk, you can't make the gain. I agree 110%.
Yeah.
Okay. So organizational communication, difference between great and like in the toilet. So tell me, how do you help organizations do that?
I think I do it in a lot of ways, right? Good communication goes from every end of your business, and you have an opportunity to do it well every time you have a communication with somebody, whether that's email or face-to-face or some kind of presentation or the things that people think of when they think of communications, right? So, you know, I've written my fair share of newsletters in my day, but I also understand that good communication will make the difference when you're talking to your employees. And if you're doing that correctly, what a difference that'll make in your business. Because it doesn't matter where you work within a business or what your industry is. Yep. If you're communicating well, it's much easier to reach your goals.
So newsletters, still the be all end all for organizational communication?
Oh, no.
Thank you. Okay. Now we're talking the same language. So when you work with your organizational clients, your business clients, what are you finding makes a difference for them?
I think the biggest difference is making sure A, you know where your goals are, and B, you know who your audience is. It never ceases to amaze me how often people don't consider either of those things. They go straight to their message and then they distribute it however they would want to hear it or however they think it should be distributed based on goodness only knows what metrics. So, you have folks who are communicating in the same way that they've always communicated, because that's how they've always communicated. And then you've got people jumping on bandwagons because it's what everybody else is doing. And neither of those are good ways to choose how, where, and when to communicate. You got to know what you're trying to do and who you're trying to talk to make that goal happen.
So, I'm pretty good at calling a spade a spade. I'm not afraid to say some things.
Yeah.
So, I kind of think a lot of organizations base their communication on, hey, this is the easiest and fastest thing for us to do. And the measure of, was it effective? Nah, that's an afterthought.
Yep.
What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. Setting goals and setting metrics that actually matter, very rare, particularly in an organization that doesn't have a group of communicators. I have been the one person team at an organization, and it's very difficult to set goals. It's very difficult to find good metrics, and then it's very difficult to track those metrics and go back and make changes according to what you're seeing.
Yeah.
So that's where people like me come in, right? Because I am somebody who can pop in and out and can do things that the rest of the team just doesn't have time to do.
Yeah. So are you a freelancer? Are you a sole proprietor? What kind of business is Helium Communications?
I am a solopreneur. I am Helium Communications.
Got it.
But I am lucky enough to have a network of people that I work with. So if I take on a giant job that needs more than just one me, I've got folks that I can call on so we can bring in a team if we need to, whether that's a designer or folks who have more expertise in something like marketing. I know good words, but marketing, it requires a bit of a skill set that I don't always have. Sometimes I do, but I'd rather, we bring in somebody who really knows their business.
Yeah.
So, So yeah, it's mostly just me, but I got other people I can call.
Cool. Okay. Can you tell us the biggest fail you've seen an organization make without naming an organization?
Oh boy.
By the way, she didn't get the questions in advance. So she's like, holy crap, where are you coming from, Barb?
I did not. I see huge fails in internal communications. All the time. All the time. Even when you've got communications folks on staff, because you're so busy communicating with those external stakeholders. Oh, it's a lot of buzzwords in one sentence. But, you're talking to your members, or you're talking to the media, or you're talking to, consumers or whatever. And they don't think about the difference that good internal communication can make. Because if your management team is just having conversations at management meetings and then rolling up and just sending things out to the staff, good luck with your culture.
Exactly.
It's just not going to work.
Yeah. Well, and so you touch on an interesting point. Culture and good internal communication are so closely tied.
For sure.
I want to tell you my favorite fail of all time. Obviously, I won't name the organization and I won't give any specifics, but I saw an organization. I used to do quite a bit of work in internal communication as well. And I saw an organization do exactly what I referenced earlier. It was easy. It was fast. Let's just get the message out. Let's not think about, how it's going to impact people. Let's just send out an email, 4:30 on a Friday afternoon. This will go well. We're sure of it. So out goes the message. And of course, there is an outcry. But because it's being done in a hurry, the to line was used instead of the CC line in that email to thousands of employees, which then preceded a reply all chain that IT could not stop. So there were hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of replies to that message with regards to the original communication that was sent out. And it was one of those bums in chairs kind of messages that really matter to employees. So there was absolutely nothing that could be done to stop it. Everyone from the president to our frontline staff received the exact same message and continuous replies. And my favorite part of this was on numerous occasions, the president interjected in the email conversation and said, could you please respond to your supervisor? Could you please? And tried to sort of lasso the conversation. No, people weren't having anything to do with it. So then Here's my favorite part. Are you
God,
ready
it
for
gets
it?
worse.
No, it gets better.
Okay.
No, it gets better. Are you ready for it? Just like when your son was little, he has his tantrum. If he gets his way, he's going to throw the tantrum again, isn't he? Well, guess what happened? The employee tantrum led to management rolling back the decision. So employees got what they wanted. Guess what happened next time? It was my favorite, absolute favorite.
That just hurts me on like so many levels.
So many levels.
Because I've said so many times, Friday afternoon is where news goes to die.
Exactly.
You know, and I think things have changed, but I think even if it's not necessarily true, there's also a perception that when you drop something on a Friday afternoon, people assume that you're trying to hide something.
Yeah,
and then they're watching
absolutely.
it that much more closely. So, you know, and then you're sending it out to thousands of people who are paying very close attention to that because they think you're trying to pull something over on them. And then you commit the horrible sin of not using the BCC. Like that irritates me enough in like some of the volunteer capacities that I'm in, and you know, at previous jobs where, you know, there'd be like 10 or 20 people, then it wasn't BCC'd, but thousands, I that just makes me want to lay down on the floor.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah, exactly. That assume the fetal position, right?
Yes. Try not to cry a lot.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so Tiffany, you know me well enough. Google and I tend to be pretty good friends, at least on a good day. There's definitely some days where I'm not a big fan, but on average, I like Google. Google likes me, and he helps me out with a lot of my work. So, what is someone Googling when they find your business?
I think you've got folks looking. I want to believe that people are searching for communications, but if Google has taught me anything, is that when people are looking for communications in Regina, they're looking for access communications, not for me.
That's one of our TV stations, by the way.
But PR, public relations, is one of the bigger things folks that would think to Google when they're looking for me. But I can do a lot of things for a lot of people in a lot of different ways. Like good words will go a long way. So if you've got somebody on your team who knows how to wield them well with a good strategy behind it, you're on your way.
Yeah, you're gold. You know, and the other thing I think that businesses confuse a lot of times is the marketing function versus the communication function. And because they're so often blended into a single department, there's a thought that everything that's marketing is communication and vice versa. And as two professionals that have worked in the field for years, that is not the case. They are two such different functions. Both require creativity. Both require, you know, good grammar, good spelling. But somebody who can wield words to help impact behavior and decisions is completely different than marketing, who's going to hopefully swing the doors open, you know, on a retail location or help you sell stuff, as I always say to people. Right? So I think there's a lot of confusion that way too.
Tons of confusion. Like, since I started my own business, it's been delightful to watch my family not ask me how it's going because they don't know what to ask because they don't understand what I do at all. Like they would understand if I was marketer. They would understand if I'd stayed in the journalism field, but this weird gray area in between, they just don't get at all, particularly because most of them didn't work in a career where they had communicators around and could sort of see what they were doing. To them, it's just like this. So it's a lot of like, how are things going? Okay, good. No follow-up questions. So
yeah, you know, it's great when family takes an interest, but when their interest is like, I have no clue what you're doing. In my mind, like, then I know I've done it right because the jobs change constantly, right? Absolutely constantly. So tell me about the communications professional. You have a journalism background. Like, what else do you have to do? Do you have to keep up to date on the latest words in the dictionary, or what do you do?
Well, I think every communicator is going to find their own niche, and what they really love to do within the industry. We'll go with that term, because it is a really wide-ranging industry, and you can do all kinds of different things. I ended up falling into a niche of editing. I am, the phrase I like to use a lot is utterly obsessed with words and how to use them well. Like I have said, and I truly believe this, that I can do anything with a red pen and a dictionary. And I love them. Like that was my moment where I was like, I'm really doing this, was when I went out and bought my Canadian Oxford dictionary, like of my own, to put in my office. I was like, I have arrived. But that's just me, right? There are folks
Mhm.
out there who, are in love with strategy.
Yes.
And I like strategy, and I believe that strategy is absolutely necessary to good communications.
Mhm.
But it's not the thing that when I think about it, like I get goosebumps, but like good words, I'm like, yes, I'm here for all of this. So, and that's where my niche is, which means that I can really help all kinds of different people, from a small business to a large business to the interpersonal part of communications is another thing that I really love.
Mhm.
It verges on therapy,
Okay.
really making sure that you've got that audience really in mind and that you're using the right words
Mhm.
so that you and the other side of that conversation are getting the most out of it.
Okay. So it sounds like a lot of the work that you've done are for some larger organizations. Do you ever work with local businesses, or how could you help a local business improve their communication?
One of the things that I think everybody needs on their communication, regardless of how large or small their business is or who they're talking to, is a second set of eyes.
Mhm.
And sometimes that's just real simple, like a proofreader. This is my deal. I do it all the time. But whenever I can, I want to send something to somebody else to look at,
Mhm.
because if it's your baby, you know what's supposed to be there, you know what you meant,
Mhm.
but somebody bringing in their outside perspective is always going to make you sharper.
Yeah.
So that's something that I can do on all kinds of things, whether it's, helping sharpen up the copy for your social media, even.
Mhm.
The
That's what I was thinking of because, wow, some of the typos that I've seen on social media, even though, you get the little red squiggle that says,
Mhm.
hey, alert, alert, spelling wrong.
Mhm.
And I need that. I am somebody who desperately needs those red alerts, right?
Yeah.
As you pointed out in a few of our messages back and forth.
Well, and I do it for like folks that I know, like if I'm scrolling through Instagram or whatever and I see a typo in the main body of the message, anybody that I know that I've done this to, I think appreciates it. And I'll just like fire them a message and I'll be like, you mean the other form of to, or you forgot this word, or there's a rogue period. And I never do it in the comments because I'm not a monster.
Right.
But I'll just send them like a little message so that they can, they can update it. But if you can have
Mhm.
somebody doing that for you before it goes live, like that's just
Absolutely.
reputation management, right? Because
Mhm.
when you miss that kind of stuff, people automatically assume that you don't know that and you therefore don't know anything.
Yes. And now you're talking my language because it's those little things from a reputational standpoint that make a huge difference for a local business, right? If you've got social media that's going out and is inaccurate and has errors,
Mm-hmm.
well, what's going to happen with my monthly billing from that organization? Am I going to have to check it over
Exactly.
each time? Right. And so that's where, I think a lot of people are coming from. It's like, I judge you by your appearance. I judge you by how your business presents itself.
Yeah.
And just like your customers judge you by the employees you hire, your customers judge you by what you put out there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I've been talking a lot lately about how everything we do is communication.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just the words that you use, it's not just the tone of voice that you use. It is how you look, whether that means as an individual, the clothes that you choose to put on, whether or not you decided to brush your hair that day.
Mm-hmm.
And you look good, you're good. Straight down to, those really, really small things.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to keep them all in mind.
Yes.
And again, keep them in mind in relation to our audience, because if you and I were just sitting here and Facebook was not involved,
Right.
if your hair wasn't brushed, it doesn't matter.
That's right.
Because I know you, and if your hair is isn't brushed, I don't care. But like those people might care. So that's a different audience. So you have to treat it differently.
Yes, absolutely. No, that's 100% true. So what are you seeing happening in your industry? How is it evolving? Where is it going? Are we going to see more communicators or more organizations recognizing the value of the work you do? Or is it going the opposite way?
Where the industry is going, I think I would be a fool to even attempt to predict, because the amount of changes that I've seen in the last 15 years hurts my brain a lot. The world is changing. If you had asked me 5 years ago if I figured this would be where we were sitting in 2019, there's absolutely no way I could have imagined.
Both would have thought we were crazy.
Right?
Yeah.
I know 2015 was a wild ride, but even then I would not have been able to see the political climate and all that sort of stuff that we're sitting in today. So to guess at that would be foolish. But I do know that means that things are going to change. So we all have to learn to be adaptable. I am really grateful that that is something that I think I'm naturally good at. You know, push me in the deep end and I'll swim, I'll be fine.
Right.
And so that's really served me well because, you know, social media wasn't even on the horizon when I was in journalism school. And the shift that that has done to media and communications and all that sort of stuff is just wild. And now it's at the point where it has to be its own separate function.
Yes.
I can't keep up with everything that's going on social media. So A+ work to those who can.
Yeah.
And,
I know.
And so I think we are going to see more communicators. I think we're not going to call them communicators, but they are going to need to understand the basics. And if they don't, it will be to their detriment. I was talking with a client the other day and they were telling me a story about somebody that they brought in to work on their social media, and all of the conversations were about Instagram and the grid.
Right.
And making sure the grid was good. And she was like, okay, but what are you saying? And they were like, but the grid. And they just couldn't figure out how important strategy and good content was in order to reach those goals. They were just like, it needs to look pretty.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to have a lot more stumbling blocks before things really get better, particularly because those big changes are scary to the older folks. And so what tends to happen is that they hire the young people who understand the platform, but maybe just don't have the strategy angle figured out. I know I didn't get strategy when I first started my career. I was just
and
like,
nor should you.
Yeah, I was like, I write newsletter, bang, 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 done. Right. But the older I got, the more I understood the necessity of strategy and how much better it would make the work. So
you know, it's interesting. There was an article not too long ago, I want to say within the last week, on Instagram, and, you know, people's need to put these filters on images and make them look pretty and create a grid. And I have a number of clients that we work with, and that's what we've done is we've created the grid. But in fact, there's a push back the opposite direction already, which is quite quick in my mind. People want real. I want to see real pictures. You know, great. We can all look fantastic with a filter, and almost every one of us has a profile picture on social media, and it's a great picture of us. It's not our everyday stuff.
Yeah.
In some cases, it might be 10 years old because it's, you know, 20 pounds ago and it's 2 kids ago and whatever else, right? And I'm equally guilty of that because we all want to, you know, present our best self. But social media has made it that much easier to present the best because they've got all these filters. And the only thing Instagram doesn't have is the ability to like bring your waist in like this.
Yeah.
Right? Yes, exactly. Even as we're speaking, I guarantee there is a designer somewhere working on that function. So like, I'm actually kind of excited to hear that we might go back to real, right? The stuff, even on Facebook, the content that you read from a person and from a business, only put the good stuff out there. Nobody wants to hear the crappy stuff. And in fact, when you do put the crappy stuff out there, even if it's you know, you're having a bad day, the kids are driving you crazy, you tend to get shit on, right? I don't want to hear about that. Like, Barb, you know, don't be so mean to your kids. It's like, this is real life, folks, right? Yeah. So, and I'm just not one to hide behind it. And
I think authentic is the word of the day. I'm terrified of the day that the backlash comes for that because anything we do, we overdo.
Yes.
And
what, you mean I'm not supposed to put my breakfast on Facebook anymore?
I mean, do you, right? If that's what you want to do, and decide if your audience wants to see it. But I think we are already seeing what I'm seeing referred to as curated authenticity, where people package their pain in a way that's acceptable so that it makes them seem real without us actually being real.
Without being real.
But I think most of us are pretty good at sniffing the BS out.
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly. There's tons of stuff. And I would never relish in someone's pain, but when someone puts something out there that's hard, I stop, I read, I comment, I support, because that is what social media is intended to do, right? Not this superfluous stuff that, you know, it's just window dressing.
Exactly.
Right?
And I mean, it's in the name, right? It's social media.
That's right. Let's keep it social. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we talked a little bit earlier about, you know, what is someone looking for when they Google you, when they find your business? And in
Mhm.
fact, they might be looking for marketing. They might be looking for a variety of different things.
Mhm.
How do you intentionally market yourself then? How do you let people know that the service exists? Because you're a business to business service,
Mhm.
right? You're not available. I mean, I suppose if a politician wanted to hire you, they could.
Mhm.
So they're an individual.
Yep.
But most people
Mhm.
don't hire a publicist unless you're making really good money. Yeah. So how do you market yourself?
And that is a question that has been extremely difficult for me to answer over the course of the last year.
Mhm.
I ironically have struggled with explaining to people exactly what it is that I do and how they can benefit from it.
Okay.
I was lucky enough to work for organizations that got it and understood what it was about. So that also means that I built a pretty decent network
Mhm.
of folks who understood me, understood what I did, and understood where I was valuable.
Okay.
So the bulk of the last year and a bit has been me reaching out to people that I know
Mhm.
or people that they know, and sort of, one step leads to the next step leads to the next step. Person to person marketing as opposed to business marketing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Believe it or not, we are just about out of time. So I'd like to ask you a final question, and then we're going to move into wrap up. So is there something that you could share with our listeners and viewers that you've already taken away from being a business owner? Tidbits, wisdom, that sort of thing. What would you share with folks?
That asking for help seems really, really hard. Like you're admitting that you're not good enough or you're not smart enough or you're in over your head or whatever. But it's the best thing that you can do for all kinds of reasons.
Mhm.
One, because in my experience, people just want to help.
Yeah.
Right. But they also don't want to impose.
Mhm.
So they're probably not going to offer, but they'll be happy to take you up
Yeah.
on the request.
Okay.
And also because everybody is an expert in something,
Mhm.
but nobody is an expert in everything. I am really, really good at what I do.
Mhm.
I'm maybe not the best at running a business, which means that I need to ask for help because I need somebody else to make up for the things that I'm not great at if I want this to be successful.
Mhm.
So, every time I've had to ask for help, it's been terrifying, but worth it.
Okay. That sounds awesome. All right. We are going to move into show wrap up here. So let's see here. Thank you, Tiffany, for being here. At the beginning of the show, I talked about an added bonus that Tiffany was going to put out to all of our listeners and viewers. So tell us a little bit about that.
So I have discovered the hard way and through working with all kinds of people that it's really, really difficult to talk about ourselves. About pages and bios are, I think, universally the worst thing to write. People hate it so much. And so what it often ends up looking like is a Mad Libs. Like, so-and-so went to school here, and then they worked here, and they like to hang out with their dog. Like, it's the same thing. And if people want to do business with you or want to bring you in to speak with their organization, they want to get a sense of who you are.
Mhm.
But we really have a difficult time explaining that. So I do what I call a bio brush up, or I did a special earlier this year, New About Me.
Mhm.
And so I will take folks' bio or their about page and we'll have a little chat and then we'll write them up a new one. And so I packaged that little special at $120 for your listeners.
Oh, that's amazing. You can spend hundreds of dollars getting your about page done. That's fantastic, Tiffany. So for any of our listeners and viewers, if you are interested and you'd like to take Tiffany up on our offer to brush up that bio, drop me a note down in this video or shoot our page above the fold a quick message and we will pass your email address on to Tiffany. Is there a time limit on that offer? If somebody listens to this in 3 years because our podcast has gone crazy wild?
I will be willing to hold that open for folks until June 15th, 2019.
Perfect. So sometime in the next month, if you listen to this podcast, please drop us a note on our Facebook page above the fold and we will get that message over to Tiffany. All right, then. Thank you, Tiffany, for joining us today and talking about great organizational communication, the changes that are coming within the profession, and, sharing a little bit about your lady balls and how you found them.
Thanks for having me.
I will be back on May 29th with a number of very special guests. So I can't name them because there's actually too many to name. I'm not quite sure how this is all going to turn out. But if you can imagine, there will be 30 guests with me on that particular day. A little crazy.
Well,
and they're going to talk about what it means to be an entrepreneur. So it's going to be a great conversation. If you'd like to be a guest on our show, just drop me an email at barb@googlegirl.ca or reach out on Facebook and Instagram. You can also shoot a message over to our Facebook page with questions in advance of the live show. I'm your host, Barb McGrath, local business owner and Google Girl. Remember, you worked hard for your success. Don't keep it a secret. Bye for now. Okay, you can leave.